Cimoooooooo! What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. So today I'm bringing to you a video on Numeron Network, and if you love fun and interactive Yu-Gi-Oh, well boy is this video for you. So these cards are released in a premium pack, I believe, in the OCG, so a set that we don't necessarily get here in the TCG, but we're gonna have to get these cards at some point, and frankly, I think we're gonna need to have this be addressed to some degree, because I'm getting a little bit jaded with all of these different, like, one card, like, pseudo FTKs that basically just like lock the opponent out of playing the game. That isn't fun for anyone whatsoever, and so I just want to demonstrate to you why this is a problem and talk about the pros and cons of Numeron Network. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So we're over on Dueling Book. I have a setup here just to demonstrate exactly what these cards are capable of doing. So let's go ahead and start with Numeron Network. For those of you who don't know, it is a field spell and says you can send one Numeron normal spell that meets its activation conditions from your deck to the graveyard. This effect becomes that spell's effect when that card is activated. You can only use this effect once per turn, and you can activate the effects of Numeron Xyz monsters you control without detaching materials. That second part will come up a little bit later on, but to start off with, you're basically going to be firing off a copy of Numeron Network, and you would then use it to send a copy of Numeron Calling. Well, what's Numeron Calling? Well, it's a normal spell card, so it meets the condition here. If Numeron Network is in your field zone and you control no monsters, special summon up to 4 Numeron Gate Xyz monsters from your extra deck with different names, but banish them during the end phase. Also, you can only normal or special summon once for the rest of this turn. Keep in mind how it says for the rest of this turn, and yeah, well, you can't control any monsters for you to be able to summon these to the field. That's still a pretty generous condition that it really doesn't restrict you in any other way aside from that. So this makes it rather splashable in a few different ways that we will cover a little bit later on. What's also of note is that Numeron Wall is actually a way to get to Numeron Network, giving you 7 copies essentially, because you can have 3 Wall, 3 Network, as well as a Terraforming. You could even boost it up to 8 if you want to go for set rotation. But Numeron Wall, quickly, if you control no cards or all cards you control in Numeron Wall, quick effect, send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, activate a Numeron Network from your hand or deck. You can only use this effect once per turn. It has another effect that kind of makes it like a pseudo Battle Fader kind of effect, but nonetheless, we're just focused on getting solely to Numeron Network. So you're going to activate this card through one of your 8 ways to access it, giving you a pretty generous chance you're going to see this in your opening hand. You are going to send Numeron Calling from your deck to the graveyard, and then you are able to special summon up to 4 number Xyz monsters, 4 Numeron Gate Xyz monsters. That would be a very big difference. So we're going to go ahead and bring out the boys. So here is number 1, here is number 2. I just went ahead and accidentally overlaid them. We'll go ahead and fix that in a second. Here is number 3, and here is number 4. So there's 4 in total that you can choose from here. I'm just going to quickly fix this so that way we can get them all out here. All 4 of these monsters have the same effect, the same stats, I believe. So here's one, number 1, Numeron Gate Ekhem. I probably butchered that, but it's a light rank 1 Xyz. Cannot be destroyed by battle. At the end of the damage step, if this card battled an opponent's monster, you can detach a material from this card, double the attack of all Numeron monsters you currently control until the end of this turn. And so as you can see here, as we go through all 4 of the different monsters, they all have this same effect. And that effect will come up when we talk about that a little bit later on. But we get to summon 4 monsters to our field for free, and what can we do with them now? Well, we can just go ahead and take all of them and overlay them on top of one another, and we can bring out everyone's favorite fun ruiner, being Utopic ZEXAL. Don't you guys remember when this card was in the format? Oh boy, that was such a blast. So for people who don't know, Utopic ZEXAL requires 3 number Xyz monsters with the same rank, which all of these are. It basically just we can do 4 at most, but typically I think 3 is actually better because that plays around Nibiru funny enough. So you can just summon 3, then ZEXAL would be your 4th summon. But if you want to boost ZEXAL to be a little bit higher attack, you can go for that 4th if you know you're clear from Nibiru. But in any case, you can also also Exceed Summon this card using a rank up magic. That's how people like would usually get to Zexal prior to this, and this card's Exceed Summon cannot be negated. When Exceed Summoned, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects, and it gains 1,000 attack and defense for each Exceed material attached to it. So if it has 3, it has 3,000, 4, it has 4,000, etc. Then getting to the most important part, once per opponent's turn, quick effect, you can detach one Exceed material from this card. Your opponent's cards and effects cannot be activated this turn. So theoretically, what you can do is you have a single card that you have 8 copies of that summons this, and now your opponent basically can't play the game. Now, there are counters to this, right? There are some things that we can do to potentially slow this down. There are cards like Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit that you could use to hit something like Numeron Network. There are cards like Forbidden Chalice and the new Forbidden Droplet, which are going to be getting in Rise of the Duelist, to negate the effect of this Zexal before it is able to actually activate. There are some ways we can work around this, but just because a card has a counter doesn't mean a card is necessarily healthy for the game. It's kind of like a True King of All Calamity situation where if you don't have the out, you're really not playing Yu-Gi-Oh! For the turn, and you're basically just screwed. Now, the thing is, Utopic ZEXAL will continuously get weaker each turn, but it doesn't necessarily matter because by that point, if your opponent's not able to play, you're just be able to most likely kill them on the next turn or just have such a strong hold on the game that you've already won at that point and it's not going to matter. Now you might think to yourself, well, Numeron Network does say you can only use, or is it the calling, excuse me. Calling says you can only normal or special summon once for the rest of this turn, so what are you really doing? I mean, you're pretty much going to be dumping everything into Utopic ZEXAL and passing, and yeah, while that may be true, there's still plenty of engines that can splash with this. Eldritch can synergize with this deck incredibly well because Eldritch doesn't mind playing on the opponent's turn. If you have ZEXAL backed up with like Scarlet Sanguine or any of the other Eldritch trap cards, then you can get a Golden Lord onto the field on your opponent's turn. You can start disrupting them with the Eldritch cards if they do have anything they can do with this Utopic ZEXAL active, which is going to be highly unlikely. And then on your turn, you're going to be able to reestablish your board by linking off or doing something with all those Eldritch cards, and then you're going to be all set to either have full control of the game or just win in one shot. Another engine you could actually splash with this is Invoked, as a matter of fact, because Invoked, it's a very concise engine, doesn't require a lot of deck space, and you're able to effectively get a lot of firepower with Alistair combined with Invocation, because guess what? These cards are lights, so that means you have access to Mechaba. So you can have Utopic ZEXAL and Mechaba and have a huge damage threshold. In addition to that, you've got cards like Purgatrio as well if you need to get even more aggressive. And we didn't even discuss the going second aspect of this because a lot of people might be thinking, well, you know, this seems cute, but what happens if you are going to go second and your opponent is all set up? Well, this deck has a way to work around that as well. Remember I mentioned that all of these individual number monsters have their own effect? Well, that is where this comes up. So if you are in the battle phase, for instance, and you have one of your Numerons, you can attack into any of your opponent's monsters. So the effect of this once again reads, at the end of the damage step, if this card battled an opponent's monster, detach a material from this card, double the attack of all Numeron monsters you control until the end phase. So you can take number 1 here and attack it into something, doesn't matter if you kill it or not, as long as it's by battle, and then all of your other Numerons are now at 2,000 attack. You can send your second one in, they're gonna double again, so your remaining 2 are at 4,000 attack. You can send the third one in, and again, if you are killing a third monster in battle, so even if your opponent has stuff like Eldritch traps to defend themselves, then that's not even gonna work because you can still hit over those. And then guess what? If this third one destroys another monster in battle, your fourth and final Numeron Xyz monster is going to be at 8,000 attack and is most likely going to be able to OTK your opponent. So if you can force out your opponent's negation and then fire off Numeron Network, you can also OTK with this one card engine going second. Now, obviously, it does have a downside, right? Because it isn't perfect. Not a lot of decks can incorporate this, although some can, as we aforementioned, but you do require a significant amount of space in the extra deck as well. You have to play 4 of these at most. I guess you could play 3 if you just wanted to play 3 plus ZEXAL, but that's already, what, a third of your extra deck if you want to commit to it. but people are going to do it. This is already something in the OCG that people are having to prepare their decks for and are main decking stuff like Forbidden Droplets, like Forbidden Chalice, because this is going to be a threat. The way our meta currently stands at the time of recording this video, it's not going to be like that by the time these cards are released. Granted, we don't know when these cards are going to come out, but it's still frightening to know that even if they address certain cards on the ban list, unless they hit Utopic ZEXAL specifically, we are going to have to deal with this nonsense one way or another, and I really hope we don't have to. Cards that have effects that basically prevent your opponent from playing the game whatsoever, in my opinion, should just all be banned. You know, True King of all Calamities is also in that same category, and so this just isn't fun. I don't think a card like this should exist. I think it's poor card design. And while it is a commitment you have to make when you're deck building, that doesn't justify the means, and I definitely think it's something that should get hit. But ultimately, guys, that's just my opinion. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. I'd really love to hear your thoughts about this because, oh boy, I really don't hope that we are getting this in Battles of Legend, because if we are going to have a very, very fun format to look forward to in the next couple of months. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always. Subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. And if you found this video informative, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member. Just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.